I stood frozen in the doorway, my heart pounding. There he was, my husband, James, sitting on the edge of our bed, whispering sweet nothings to his phone. His eyes were soft, his voice tender, a side of him I hadn't seen in years. But it wasn't for me. I had just come home from a long day at work, exhausted but ready to unwind. The house was quiet, too quiet. I called out for James, but no answer. I followed the faint murmur of his voice to our bedroom. There he was, phone in hand, his back to me. "You're the only one who understands me," he said, his voice dripping with affection. My stomach dropped. Who was he talking to? James didn't notice me standing there. I held my breath, trying to make sense of what I was hearing. Was he cheating? My mind raced. I wanted to confront him, but something stopped me. Maybe it was the way his voice trembled when he said, "I've missed you so much." I cleared my throat, loud enough for him to hear. James jumped, his face turning pale. He started, but I cut him off. "Who are you talking to?" I asked, my voice steady despite the storm inside me. He hesitated, then muttered, "No one important." "No one important," I repeated, taking a step closer. It didn't sound like no one. It sounded like someone you care about. James sighed, running a hand through his hair. "It's complicated," he said, avoiding my gaze. That night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. James's words replayed in my mind. Complicated. What did that even mean? Was he having an affair? Or was it something else? I felt a knot in my chest, a mix of anger and confusion. The next morning, I couldn't focus. I kept replaying the scene in my head, James's voice echoing in my mind. During lunch break, I found myself scrolling through his phone while he was in the shower. My hands shook as I opened his call log. There were no unfamiliar numbers, just work and family. But something caught my eye, a string of late-night texts to an unknown contact labeled private. I opened the messages, my heart racing. They were filled with heart emojis, "miss you," and inside jokes I didn't understand. One message read, "can't wait to see you again." My hands went cold. Who was this person? And why was James hiding it? When James came home, I confronted him about the texts. "Who's private?" I asked, holding up his phone. He snatched it from me, his face turning red. "It's not what you think," he said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Then what is it?" I demanded. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "It's complicated," he repeated, the same excuse he'd given before. We argued late into the night. I accused him of cheating, of lying to me, of throwing away our marriage. James denied it all, but his answers were vague, his eyes darting away whenever I pressed him. "Just tell me the truth," I begged, tears streaming down my face. "I can't," he whispered, his voice breaking. After that night, things between us grew colder. James slept on the couch, and our conversations were limited to polite small talk. I felt like a stranger in my own home, the distance between us widening with each passing day. A week later, I found a hidden folder on James's laptop. It was password protected, but I managed to guess it, our wedding date. Inside were photos of James with a woman I didn't recognize. They looked happy, their arms around each other, smiling like they had no cares in the world. My chest tightened. Was this the same person he'd been texting? I printed out the photos and confronted James again. "Who is she?" I asked, my voice steady despite the storm inside me. James took the photos, his face falling. "It's not what you think," he said again, but this time his voice was softer, almost pleading. James finally broke down and told me the truth. The woman in the photos was his sister, Sarah, who had been living abroad for years. They'd reconnected recently, and he'd been helping her through a tough time. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked, my voice shaking. "I didn't want you to worry," he said, his eyes filled with regret. Relief washed over me, but it was mixed with anger. Why had he lied? Why had he kept it a secret? James explained that Sarah had asked him to keep it between them until she was ready to tell the family. "I should have trusted you," he admitted, his voice thick with emotion. James apologized over and over, his words filled with sincerity. "I'm so sorry, Emma. I never meant to hurt you. I just wanted to protect Sarah." I nodded, my heart still heavy. "You should have trusted me," I said, but my voice was softer now, the anger fading. We spent the next few days slowly rebuilding trust. James made an effort to be more open, sharing details about his conversations with Sarah. I tried to listen without judgment, but it wasn't easy. The hurt was still there, lingering like a shadow. One evening, James's phone rang. It was Sarah. He hesitated before answering, glancing at me for permission. I nodded, and he took the call in the other room. I could hear snippets of their conversation, laughter, concern, and then silence. When he returned, his face was pale. "What's wrong?" I asked. "Sarah's coming home," he said, his voice tight. Sarah arrived a week later. She was younger than James, with the same dark hair and a smile that lit up the room. But there was something fragile about her, a sadness in her eyes. James introduced us, and she hugged me like we'd known each other forever. "Thank you for understanding," she whispered in my ear. Over dinner, Sarah explained why she'd been away. She'd been struggling with her mental health, and the distance had been her way of coping. "I didn't want to burden anyone," she said, her voice trembling. James reached across the table to hold her hand, his eyes filled with concern. As the days passed, I got to know Sarah better. She was funny, smart, and kind, with a strength that belied her struggles. We spent afternoons walking through the English countryside, talking about everything and nothing. Slowly, I began to understand why James had been so protective of her. One afternoon, Sarah pulled me aside. "There's something else," she said, her voice low. "James didn't just help me emotionally. He's been supporting me financially too. That's why he's been working so much." My heart ached for him. He'd been carrying this burden alone, never asking for help. That night, I confronted James again, but this time with gratitude. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked, my voice soft. He shrugged, avoiding my gaze. "I didn't want you to think I was failing as a husband," he admitted. I pulled him into a hug, my heart overflowing with love for him. With Sarah's return, our home felt fuller, brighter. James seemed lighter too. The weight of his secrets lifted. We started spending more time together as a family, laughing and sharing meals, slowly healing the cracks in our marriage. One evening, Sarah and I stayed up late talking. "I'm so grateful for both of you," she said, tears in her eyes. "You've given me a second chance." I squeezed her hand. "Family is about being there for each other, no matter what," I replied. Before Sarah left to find her own place, we made a promise to each other. No more secrets, no more carrying burdens alone. We were a family, and we'd face everything together. Life settled into a new rhythm. Sarah moved into a small flat nearby, but she was a constant presence in our home. James and I fell back into old habits, but with a deeper understanding of each other. We laughed more, fought less, and made an effort to communicate. One weekend, we decided to take a trip to the Cotswolds. It was Sarah's idea, a chance to spend time together away from the routine of daily life. The three of us piled into James's car, a picnic basket in the back, and set off for a day of exploring. We found a spot by a river, the water sparkling in the sunlight. James spread out a blanket, and we sat down to eat. Sarah told stories about her travels, making us laugh with her exaggerated gestures. It felt like we were truly a family, connected in a way we hadn't been before. After lunch, we took a walk through the village. The Cotswold stone houses were charming, their gardens overflowing with flowers. Sarah linked arms with both of us, her excitement infectious. "This is perfect," she said, breathing in the fresh air. As the sun began to set, we found a bench overlooking a field of sheep. James sat between Emma and Sarah, his arms around both of them. "I'm so glad we're here," he said softly. Emma leaned her head on his shoulder, feeling a peace she hadn't known in months. The drive home was quiet, but it was a comfortable silence. Sarah hummed along to the radio, James's hand occasionally brushing Emma's. It was moments like these that made Emma realize how much they'd grown, both as individuals and as a family. Back at the cottage, we decided to cook dinner together. Sarah took charge, teaching them how to make her favorite pasta dish. The kitchen was filled with laughter, the clatter of pots and pans, and the aroma of garlic and basil. As we sat down to eat, James raised his glass. "To family," he said, his voice steady but filled with emotion. Sarah and Emma clinked their glasses against his, their eyes shining. It was a simple moment, but it meant everything. After dinner, we sat in the living room, the fire crackling in the hearth. Sarah played the guitar, her voice soft and melodic. James and Emma sat side by side, his arm around her shoulders. It was a perfect ending to a perfect day. As Emma lay in bed that night, she thought about how far they'd come. The pain of the past months had been real, but so was the healing. She reached out to hold James's hand, feeling grateful for their second chance. The next morning, Sarah arrived with gardening gloves and a stack of plant catalogs. "Let's fix up the garden," she declared. James groaned playfully, but Emma was excited. The garden had been neglected, and it was time to bring it back to life. We spent the afternoon planning. Sarah wanted roses and lavender, James suggested a vegetable patch, and Emma voted for a cozy seating area. By the end of the day, we had a rough sketch of our dream garden. The following weekend, we started digging. The soil was hard, and our muscles ached, but we laughed through the work. James and Sarah had a mini competition to see who could dig the deepest hole, while Emma focused on clearing the weeds. A few weeks later, the plants arrived. We spent the day planting roses, lavender, and tomatoes. The garden began to take shape, and it was beautiful. Sarah stepped back to admire her work. "It's going to be amazing," she said, beaming. James built a wooden bench for the seating area. It was simple but sturdy, the perfect spot to sit and enjoy the garden. On its first evening, we sat together, watching the sunset. "This feels like home," Emma said softly. A few months later, the the vegetable patch started producing. We picked tomatoes, cucumbers, and carrots, using them to cook a family dinner. Sarah made a salad, James grilled the vegetables, and Emma baked bread. It was a feast. To celebrate the garden's transformation, we hosted a small party. Neighbors and friends came over, and we spent the afternoon laughing and eating under the sun. Sarah played the guitar, James manned the grill, and Emma chatted with the guests. As the party wound down, the three of us sat on the bench, watching the stars come out. "This was a good idea," James said, his arm around Emma. Sarah leaned her head on his shoulder. "We make a pretty good team," she replied. From that day on, we made it a tradition to spend Sundays in the garden. We'd work on new projects, harvest vegetables, or simply sit and enjoy the peace. It became our sanctuary, a symbol of our renewed bond. One Sunday, as we sat on the bench, Emma realized how much had changed. The garden wasn't just a garden. It was a testament to their love, patience, and forgiveness. "I love you both," she said, her voice filled with gratitude. James and Sarah smiled, their hands clasped together. As autumn arrived, we began preparing the garden for winter. James built a small shed to store tools. Sarah covered delicate plants with frost cloth, and Emma planted bulbs for spring flowers. The garden was a year-round project now, and we embraced every season. On bonfire night, we hosted a small gathering in the garden. James built a bonfire, Sarah made toffee apples, and Emma set up blankets and pillows. We sat around the fire, watching fireworks light up the sky, feeling grateful for the warmth of family and friends. In December, we decorated the garden with fairy lights and a small Christmas tree. The cottage felt magical, and the garden became our winter wonderland. We spent evenings sipping hot chocolate, wrapped in blankets, and enjoying the stillness of the season. On New Year's Eve, we sat in the garden, making resolutions. James vowed to learn more about gardening. Sarah promised to write more, and Emma decided to take up painting. We sealed our promises with a toast, the garden a silent witness to our hopes for the future. In late winter, Emma spotted the first snowdrop peeking through the soil. It was a small victory, a sign of life returning to the garden. We gathered around it, smiling, feeling the promise of spring in the air. Spring arrived with a burst of color. The bulbs we'd planted bloomed into tulips, daffodils, and crocuses. The garden felt alive again, and we spent weekends planting new flowers and vegetables, our laughter echoing through the air. James built a birdhouse and hung it in a tree. Soon birds began to visit, their songs filling the garden. We set up a bird feeder and spent hours watching them, feeling connected to nature in a new way. Summer brought long, lazy evenings in the garden. We strung up lanterns and set up a hammock. Sarah often read aloud, while James and Emma relaxed. The scent of blooming flowers and cut grass filling the air. One sunny afternoon, we decided to take a family portrait in the garden. We posed on the bench, surrounded by the beauty we'd created together. It was a moment to cherish, a reminder of how far we'd come. As we sat on the bench that evening, James said, "This garden is more than just plants. It's us." Emma and Sarah nodded, their hearts full. The garden had become a symbol of their love, resilience, and the life they'd built together. Emma started a garden journal, documenting each season's changes and milestones. She wrote about the first snowdrop, the summer blooms, and the quiet winter mornings. It became a cherished record of their shared journey. One afternoon, a stray cat wandered into the garden. It was a calico with a curious expression. Sarah named her Rosie and left food out for her. Soon, Rosie became a regular visitor, often curling up on a bench or following us around the garden. We decided to host another garden party, this time in the summer. Friends and neighbors gathered under the string lights, enjoying food, music, and laughter. Rosie even made an appearance, charming everyone with her playful antics. There were days when the garden was just ours. We'd sit in silence, listening to the birds, feeling the warmth of the sun. These quiet moments were just as precious as the celebrations, a reminder of the peace we'd found together. As the years passed, the garden became more than a hobby. It was a legacy. We talked about how it would grow and change, just as we had. One day, we hoped, our children or grandchildren would sit on that bench, feeling the same love and connection we did.